أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah, thank you Sister Nimra, and first and foremost we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ability to be here today, for all of the gifts that He bestows upon us. And that reminder of thanking Sister Nimra and all of the organizers, the masjid community, our well-wishers, donors, people who made dua. As our Prophet ﷺ has told us, in Man lam yashkur nas lam yashkur Allah, those who have not expressed gratitude to people have not expressed and shown gratitude to Allah. So we're very thankful, alhamdulillah, in expressing our gratitude for this. The title of this talk is the cost of the dream. And I was thinking about this in the context of that. I studied in Damascus. I'm just full disclosure, I'm a convert to Islam, so I picked up a little bit of slang. I don't speak any Syrian slang, but we had to stick to our modern, to our fusha. But I picked this up, ma biji balashin, the Shamis used to say, ma biji balashin. It doesn't come, nothing comes for free. So I think about that in the context of this cost of a dream, faith, sacrifice, and survival in sports. Right? إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَىٰ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم بِأَنَّ الْجَنَّةَ. Allah has purchased from the believers their persons and their wealth, and in return they have Jannah. But now we're talking about in the context of the dunya, and the context of success, inshaAllah, that is both in both worlds, in the dunya and in the akhirah. So alhamdulillah, for tonight, just really one of the things I'd like to start off with, inshaAllah, to get us going here, is really just to think about this, and whoever, mashallah, would want to speak, then please, feel free to speak. But the first question I'm going to ask about is around this context of reality that nobody sees, right? Because I think so much of what you all do is invisible. And alhamdulillah, it's like the idea of the restaurant, that everyone just sees this beautiful plate kind of being presented onto the table, but didn't know what was happening, behind, or, use it now as a metaphor. But really, I would say I'll start this off with I'll throw a quick alley-oop. I'll throw a quick alley-oop right now. What did people, if you could say, what did people perhaps misunderstand about your journey? If we had to start off with that, what do you think that people misunderstand about the journey? We'll start with there, inshallah.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. I'm really excited to be here and just be able to speak to all you guys and my sisters and brothers here. For me to answer your question, for me, basketball, the first thing people know about basketball players is they're tall. And alhamdulillah, I was blessed to be tall. I don't know how I got to 6'9", but somehow I found a way. And then, and I would say it piggybacks off of that, just the fact that I am tall, and people feel like, you're tall and it's gonna be a given that you're gonna be a good basketball player. But I actually grew up skateboarding, and I didn't start playing basketball until 10, and even when I did, I wasn't good at all. And I had, there's a lot of people that are tall, and it's more than just being tall, and obviously that's a big factor. But I would say the thing that people don't see is that, and take for granted, is just people having height and certain natural gifts that they didn't work for. But it takes a lot more than just those things, and there has to be a lot of things behind the scenes, like my father teaching me how to shoot, making me go shoot on my own, not being able to play in the park, have to go work out by myself. It was stuff like that just gave me a chance beyond just, obviously, alhamdulillah, my height. So that's what I would say.
MashaAllah, thank you. Alhamdulillah. We want to check the volume on that mic. Is it a little low?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I would say for me, my perspective is a little bit different because I obviously didn't play sports, I work in it. But I would say in general, I think one of the things that people didn't really understand getting into working in sports is they just didn't see people doing it. And I think in the Muslim community, we have lots of doctors, lawyers, engineers, which is necessary and it's great. And I think a lot of careers that kind of are unique and things that people haven't seen is just something that they don't understand because they haven't seen it. So I think, people looked and they're like, okay, well, you like sports, doesn't mean that has to be your job. And it was kind of a unique path for me just to figure out, this is something that I like, how can I leverage this into being able to do something that I do for a living?
Sister Amina, I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy on that one. Because I think you have two levels that you have to deal with. One is just the sports itself, and then also now a woman in sports, right? Like inside of our community, right? Inside of our community. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just being a woman, period, in the NFL and in my space, which is in scouting, is incredibly rare. And I think it's really cool to see how it's kind of evolved over the last couple of years, and it's trending in a cool direction. But yeah, I mean, I think even growing up watching football, it was, my boy cousin was watching football, and it was weird that I was the girl that was watching football. My one cousin is here somewhere. And I think it was something that I got into as a hobby, and I said, this is cool. And then obviously adding on the layer of being Muslim, but it being kind of different in the community for people to understand and get a feel for this is something that you can really do and make a job out of.
Inshallah. Allah continues to bless you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. To answer the question, and mashallah, that was a good description of being in the NFL world. But for me, I think what people misunderstand is, you turn the TV on Sunday, you see people, guys out there running around making plays, and everybody just thinks, he's making tackles on Sundays. He's successful, he's gonna get paid and all of this, but what they misunderstand is, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday through Saturday, the preparation, the diet, and trying to eat right, trying to make sure your body is, how you want it to be, the sleep that you need to get, the rest that you need to get, the amount of time that you need to put in your body, not being able to have time for family sometimes or friends that you connect with. People don't hear from you after some time, and they think, oh, he's big time. He doesn't care about us anymore. But really and truly is, I'm trying to do everything that I'm trying to do to prepare for Sunday, because that's going to determine what my future is going to be if I'm going to keep playing. Because the time's running out every day. We get evaluated every single day. The moment we get into that building, the evaluation starts. And coaches say that every day, and it's true. You may think nobody's watching, but they're watching. So for what people misunderstand is the life that we live is not really it's not easy as people think. They might turn the game on Sunday, but really the preparation starts on Monday. And then Sunday is just the outlook, like you said, the restaurant. You see the finished product, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of recipes that you got to put together, for your body, for yourself, your preparation, and everything. So. That's part of the biggest misunderstanding that people might have.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First, thanks to all the organizers and the local hosts. When I was at the NFLPA, there probably went to 11 Super Bowls for work, which was a phrase I never thought I would say growing up. Outside of Detroit, partly because I'm a Detroit Lions fan and they're never going to make the Super Bowl, but also because I never thought I would be able to work in sports and have to go for my job. But this community was always the community, and I'm not just saying this. I know Preacher Moss is here and other people. Every time the Super Bowl's here, they embrace it as a Muslim community in a way that I've never seen in any other community wherever Super Bowls are played. So I just want to recognize that for the people who are local. I think, well, first I'm glad they're sitting and not standing because these two are pretty tall. But also, I think all of us have friends and families family members who would say that we have dream jobs, that phrase, dream jobs. And I think all of them would emphasize the word dream in that phrase. And I think the four of us would emphasize, yeah, but it's still a job. And it's the kind of job that is actually deceptive, because actually all of our jobs, everybody in this room, is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala each and every day. And like Hadi said, we're judged, athletes are judged every single day, and it can end in a moment, but so are all of us, whether we realize that or not. And so I'm very thankful, alhamdulillah, to be able to work in sports and to be able to do this for a living and travel really the world now and doing that for a living. But I'm also just very cognizant of this is not it. And I know there's some young people in the room and people who are earlier in their careers. And that phrase, just be careful with the phrase dream job. And never forget what your actual job is, what our actual job is as Muslims each and every day, inshallah.
MashaAllah, beautifully put, MashaAllah. Or I guess in tennis we'd say well played. Well played. So, mashallah, Brother Ali, you mentioned something here, and I'm wondering if we can segue into this next question based off of what you said. And then, what you had said was, sometimes people will say, well, he's not returning my call because, he's reached at a certain level or something like that. What I want to ask is maybe each of you could discuss and share with the audience here is that also, what did success actually cost? Right? What does success actually cost? You mentioned about family, you mentioned about relationships, other things such as this. Maybe perhaps you want to share if you could also share a little bit about that.
I think it cost a price that I didn't think I had, man. For me, early on, even going back to college, excuse me, I think in terms of time with Allah, it kind of challenged me in that aspect because there were times where I would be in meetings and, in that moment I didn't know how to handle telling my coach, I have to go pray, it's the Lord, we had a 1 o'clock meeting, going against, breaking down, the team that we have that week, scouting report, it's not the Lord, but in my mind I'm challenged because I'm like, how do I tell my coach I need to step out and go pray, pray the Lord and come back, and then I sort of come by around practice time and I'm like, how do I tell coach I need to go, or do I delay and wait till I'm done with practice? But those conversations that I had in my head, I think success, it cost me things that weren't even as meaningful because I was delaying what was more meaningful, which was like spending time with Allah and just fulfilling one of the most important things in my life, which was, to spend time with Allah. What it cost me, not only that, it cost me, I think also mentally for myself, it cost me time from being able to reflect and really ask myself, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? For my family, yes, but why? I didn't really have those conversations, and I think it really deterred me from, doing things that were beneficial for me and in my career path. But as far as those two things, there were some other minor things, but I think in the college space, there were a lot of distractions, obviously, but it cost me, a lot, but over time, coming into my career space now, I think I was able to put that into perspective and realize that nothing matters if I don't align myself with Allah. If Allah doesn't come first, then nothing else deserves to be in that place.
Before, mashallah, if I may, I want to say something to the audience here, inshallah, because he touched on something which I have spoken about to my years of been kind of in this work, is this concept. So, alhamdulillah, we call before the salat, what is it called? What do we call before the call to prayer is what? What is it? The adhan. What's the asl? What's the root of that word? Adhana yu'adhin means to give permission. So literally, it is Allah saying to the inhabitants of the earth, the time in which you will worship me, you now have permission. So you said something really profound, which is, how am I going to tell my coach that I need to go pray? And what I've told now my congregation, or I've told the youth that I've worked with before, is that we're not going to ask anybody in creation if we can pray when we've been given permission by the one who is the creator to pray. So what we do is we respectfully inform them that I need to pray. And that's the courage, inshallah ta'ala, that I ask all of us to embrace and to walk into that. And the key word here is with respect. Right? If we want respect, then we will give respect. But the idea that we're going to ask someone if we can pray after Allah has given it to us, that's not from where we want to be. We want to be, mashallah, in that place of confidence. Allah has given it to me. And alhamdulillah, I'm going to move forward with that idhin from the adhan.
And I just want to touch back. I don't want to take too much time, but I think for my transition on that was my first year in the league. I had that flip in my head that I can't keep living like this, and then made the decision that if I'm going to be successful, because success comes from Salah.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be successful, and it took time because I had this, digging soul searching and just trying to get closer, to Allah, and just asking myself, how do I get closer to Allah? And it just clicked, when my first training camp, practice, we would be at the facility from 6 to 6, so hours straight. So I was like, no, I can't, I'm not just gonna go through the whole day and just collect the prayers without praying and then finish it up at the end of the day. So I said, I talked to my coach, I was like, Coach, I need to go pray. And I think the transition from what I said earlier was exactly what you said. I had to make that decision and let them know, like if you want to cut me because I'm going to pray, I'll see you out the door. I'm gone. But I had to make that decision, and once I made that decision, I was at peace, and it wasn't even as complicated. It was just as easy as, go ahead, take the time you need, come back whenever you're done. And it was that simple. And the thought that I had in my head that it was going to be complicated, it didn't even exist, but it was a shaitan in your head saying, it's not going to happen. Just wanted to cut you all these questions. But that's why I don't want to take too much time.
Mashallah. Take that step to him and he'll make it easy to you, come running to you.
In terms of sacrifice, I think the other thing in terms of the cost I would just add is that because our jobs take up a lot of time in our lives, there's certain things where maybe it's sleep that's getting sacrificed, maybe it's your social life and you don't have as much time to spend with people that you want to spend. And I think for everybody there's probably a sliding scale of at what point is this still worth it? Is my desire to have family time and have an extensive social life and be able to do these types of things outside of work, does that outweigh my desire to be spending a lot of time in this career? And I think the answer is different for everybody. But ultimately, for most of us, I think we've put a lot of time into, pursuing something that we've put a lot of time into, and that we're willing to make some level of sacrifice in whatever those elements are to be able to spend the amount of time that we need to spend.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's mashallah.
I would say as well, as an athlete, you sacrifice a lot of time, and the most important thing, not the most important thing, I would say the thing that I felt growing up that I sacrificed, as brother here said, was just the relationship with Allah. Especially, I was born Muslim, but as all Muslims know, you got to find your own relationship with Allah as you grow up, and you got to come to the deen on your own. Just because you're born Muslim, Allah guides who He will. So for me, I felt like chasing basketball, chasing the dunya was something that you chase it so much, and it got to a point for me when I reached what I thought was a pinnacle I never reached before, for me to realize it really means nothing if I don't have the relationship with Allah that I want to have, because I'm sacrificing my akhirah at the end of the day by chasing this dunya. And I felt like it took me to get to the mountaintop to realize that, and then from there on, when I decided I'm gonna make the commitment to be the best Muslim I could be, those lonely nights that I might have had chasing basketball, at the end of the day, when you're trying to progress in the career sports and as an athlete, it never ends, and you never feel like you reached a level that's good enough for you. But as a Muslim, and you feel like if you're making your salah, you're trying to get better, gain more knowledge, and be the best Muslim you can be, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. And it took me to reach the highest of highs, to feel like I feel empty, to then realize that even if my career is not going how I want it, as long as my iman and my deen is intact, I'm unshakable after that. So that's what I would say to myself: just sacrificing your akhirah while chasing the dunya, and that's a sacrifice that's not worth it at all for no amount of success in this life. So.
But I think it's so beautiful about what he's saying there is that it's not specific to this career path and this choice or athletics, right? This can be spread across anybody and any kind of commitment that someone is making to a craft or to an education or to whatever it is, that if it is at the cost of our akhirah, then we need to, of the next life, then this is something that we have to reassess. We have to reassess. And mashallah, I love the way that it was put. It was like, if the GPS is taking you to the wrong place, all of a sudden it says, right, rerouting. So we have to think about those moments, inshallah, that we want to reroute, because this path that I'm going right now is not going to get me to my destination. Right? So it's mashallah being articulated in a way which is experiential, so it's not just abstract.
I'll be quick. If any of you watch the Avengers movies, there's a scene where Thanos is talking to somebody and they asked him, "Did you win?" And he says, "Yes." And what did it cost? And he says, "Everything." And I think the challenge for anybody in this industry is to not have it cost them everything. And wallahi, I have met people who, by every definition of the dunya, have had every success you could possibly have. Billionaires, record breakers, Hall of Famers. And some of those people, particularly the ones who don't have Islam, are the most, not among, the most unhappy people I've ever encountered in my life. All right, and so to me, those are, alhamdulillah, it didn't cost me that, but I saw that and I thought, wow, this isn't, and just the way we're conditioned, especially here and especially on our phones, what we hold up as success and what we hold up, it's in the adhan, like you said, hayat al-falah, that's the success. 5 times a day that we're invited to that and we're given permission to that. And these other people who chase it and get it, they catch it, and then you're like, it's not it.
You know, it's interesting if you think about this as well as just metaphorically, as someone in success will say who achieve that, then the understanding is that they will pass that down, right? So imagine that now we, as Allah talks about, we sacrifice this for bakhsan, you know, like for a miserly price, and then we're unable now to transfer that into our children, right? Now what is it worth? What is it worth? And so to think about that in a little context here. So we have, it's just, how much time do we have? We're gonna, I know Salat is at 10, but how much time, like when are we gonna stop that? Oops, sorry. What happens? Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about now is a little bit, again, you know, this area to really help people walk through things. I'm going to move to something really here about kind of failure and doubt and things like this. And, you know, one of the things that I want to talk about, because we always see this success story and so has made it and like this, but also within that there are setbacks, perhaps, or doors that didn't open before one arrives there. So if you could share with us, to the audience, how have you seen this for yourself, perhaps maybe even with others, but how do you recover when the dream doesn't go according to plan? We talked about success, and success has its own definition with Allah, but now we talk about right, according to plan. So whose plan?
I've had this idea for a long time that instead of LinkedIn, there should be like the opposite of LinkedIn, where you put all the jobs you applied to that you didn't get, and all the jobs you might have gotten fired from, and like what you actually did every day. And the reason I say that, I mean, I went to a good law school, alhamdulillah. I applied for 201 clerkships. I got 2 interviews, and I got 1 job, and it turns out you can only have 1 full-time job. But that is a horrible batting average, right? I mean, 2 interviews out of 200 applications, and this was back in the day. I had to mail them. It was expensive, right? Like this was not, there was no online, any of this. And so I think it's a great question, because the way we're conditioned, you know, LinkedIn is like the Instagram of careers, right? It's all polished and nice, but you don't actually know what went into that. And I think it's a great question because everybody's been cut from some team. Like Michael Jordan's been cut from his high school team, right? Like, so realizing that, because it's not a straight line, it is ups and downs, and sometimes it feels like there's more downs than ups, and success in this life is not guaranteed. And so being able to recognize that and be at peace with that and submit to that is, as a Muslim, right, submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and recognizing that the ultimate success is in the next life, is something we can all work towards. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different jobs along the way, even more recently, where, you know, you think, oh, that could be a good thing, and you don't really know, right? You have no idea what kind of success, and if you get it, then you make dua that it's for the best, and if you don't get it, you thank Allah and you're patient with it, and that you know that inshallah there's something better in this life or the next, or both.
You know, mashallah, that's an incredibly important point that I don't want to just kind of let go. Sayyid Ahmed, what he mentioned here, that, you know, we say that, you know, what we receive is a gift, but sometimes we don't think of it that what has been withheld from us is also a gift. And that, you know, aligns directly with the asa an takrahu shay'an wa khair lakum. Perhaps it is that you detest something and it is good for you. And perhaps it is you love something and it is harmful to you. Allah knows and you know not. So this idea, and that's why it's kind of almost like a play on words here of this idea of plan. And I ask kind of whose plan, right? And where are we going to align ourselves with the reality of that? So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, so I would say, as just along with the question itself, the dream never really goes as planned for 99% of us. I would feel as athletes, and whether it's minor setbacks or major ones, I feel like something that personally as an athlete that you have to grow to get to the point of is, being okay with the setbacks. And at the end of the day, as we're taught as Muslims, tie your camel, like do what you can do. And at the end of the day, it's the qadr of Allah, what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, good, bad, alhamdulillah, and you only can fall back on the foundation, which is Islam. And after that, whatever is meant to happen is going to happen. Whatever is not going to happen, it was for the best at the end of the day. So that's something that as a Muslim, you still struggle with as an athlete, because of course you want to be as good as you can be all the time, but you never know what could have happened if things went how you wanted it, and it wasn't for the best if it didn't happen that way.
The thing that I would say I would add, and I think is probably one of my favorite verses, if not my favorite, is that Allah is the best of planners. And I think about looking back at me not getting into the college I wanted to get into, maybe not getting a job I wanted to get. And now when I look back from this perspective, I look back and I see that those things needed to happen for me to get to where I needed to get to. In the moment, it's one of those things that's maybe easier said than done, and it's hard to say this is going to pay off, but just remembering, kind of tapping into what Brother Ahmed said about, just knowing that it might not be good for you, or it might be good for you even if it's not what you want. But I think that's one of those things that you kind of actively have to think about a lot, is that it's not your plan, it's Allah's plan, and might not be going the way that we think it's supposed to be going, but it's going to end up in the place that it's supposed to end up.
Alhamdulillah, I'm sitting up here, and from the outside looking in, this may look like a success story, or he's on the other side of the spectrum. But don't let that fool you, because, man, I think, failure looks differently for most of us. But we've all been through failure. And my definition of what success looked like was far from the truth. Obviously, as an athlete, you have so many goals that you set for yourselves, things that you want to accomplish, places that you want to be recognized, or having mentioned above the best, among the best. And for me, I had all those goals, but I'll tell you right now, I'll probably accomplish maybe less than 10% of all those goals. But alhamdulillah, the beautiful thing about it is Allah kept me going through what I wanted to do, even without the biggest success in it. And I feel like there's a beauty in it, which is that I'm still doing what I love, and I'm grateful. And I wouldn't trade for anything else. But I think what Allah is trying to teach me is that, everything comes with time and patience. What you think you want may not look like you mentioned earlier. He wants something better for you. What you think you want, that may bring some type of ego or some type of, it may deter you from your path that you're supposed to be on. And I'm grateful that I was never an arrogant person, alhamdulillah, and I ask Allah to protect me from that. But I feel like if I had, even over 50% of what I wanted to achieve, I feel like it may lead me to that and keep me away from where I was supposed to be. But alhamdulillah, I failed time and time again, but it taught me something that winning could never, have taught me. Being as successful as I wanted would have never taught me. Yeah,
there's a beautiful lesson in what you said, that in that what is being withheld from us, that we just don't know, right? We don't. Perhaps we think that where we're at spiritually is more advanced than we actually are. So Allah withholding that thing is because, ya abdi, my sir, I know you're not ready for this, right? That's His love. That's His love for expressing, like His holding back, just like our children. Certain things, I'm not going to hand the keys of my car to my child. I love you. You ain't ready for the 290 East. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. But there's something beautiful I want to, if I may, So alhamdulillah, I was blessed. I converted my first year. Alhamdulillah, I got to travel the Muslim world. I made Hajj and feeling great. Went to Damascus to go study. And one of my teachers said, stay in between your, if you can stay between your first year and your second year, don't go home. And we'll study grammar during that summer. So I said, okay. Alhamdulillah, I was able to do that. And I remember one day, we were sitting outside on the steps. It was hot. It was between Dhuhr and Asr, and we're reading a text in Arabic. And I literally am like, Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha. And I made it through that first year. Now I'm in the summer, we're studying a little bit of grammar. And I'm reading the book, and I'm making every mistake you can. I'm making the singular as a plural, the plural as a dual, the masculine, the feminine. I'm making every mistake you can, and I'm expressing my frustration. So my teacher, he's literally a Bedouin from the desert of Algeria. Allah bless him, Sheikh Farid, and his family. He says to me, Ma bika ya Dawood. He says, what's with you, Dawood? I said, Sheikh, I said, Yani, La astati', I even probably said, La tastati'. You can't read. I said some broken line to him. And he just laughed, and he said, is the earth spinning? I said, yes. He said, how fast? I said, I don't know. And he told me. And then he said, is it going around the sun? And I said, yes. And he said, how fast? He said, I don't know. And then he told me. And then he said, can you feel it? And I said, no. And he said, like that, you're learning. But that's not it. What he said afterward is it. And he said, perhaps it is that Allah is protecting you right now, because if you came here with 1 year and you didn't know Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, and all of a sudden you can, as they say, taqra al-kitab kal-balbagha, right? You can read the book like everybody else. That's at level year 3 and year 4 and year 5. He said, perhaps your ego would have been so inflated that it would have destroyed you and destroyed the rest of your journey in your studies, because you were not ready for that. And so, mashallah, this idea that Allah will give it to us when we're ready. And if we believe that He is the all-wise, that He is the all-knowing, and that He is, our foundational relationship with Him is based on His love for us, then we'll submit. And we'll submit. So, just talking about this a little bit more, kind of moving the conversation a little bit more in terms of just, maybe being Muslim in competitive sports here. A question I want to ask is, maybe what are unique challenges that Muslim athletes or others, Muslim professionals in this space, face that we may not see? So kind of open up that conversation for us, if you will.
Can you put the question one time?
So, sorry about that.
Some challenge?
What unique challenges do Muslim athletes and professionals face that perhaps others may not see?
I think one of them is people may not know how to cater to us in the workforce or the building. When you're in the building, for example. I think one thing that's important is you elaborate on, like, communicate with people, let them know that this is what you need. You can't eat that. You gotta pray. If you can get a little space in a corner or something like that, it'll go a long way. I think for people to understand that, it comes from us, just speaking our minds. And to be honest, I think for me, that's one thing I found pretty useful. And it's taken me a long way, and it's got me out of my head, thinking that it's impossible, or it may, lead them to thinking in some way. But to be honest, and it's led to some conversations, some important conversations. But getting down with people and them asking about the Quran, there's some pretty ignorant conversations that you have where you just gotta put it to the side and just, slap it in and let them know, like, it ain't like it, But it's given a lot of good conversations that I've had with people. They'll ask me why I do this and do that. And it's positive for the most part. And I've had the opportunity to share some, Qur'ans with people who have a lot of conversations. But to be honest, it's a lot of challenging things because it's like everything that you're against, you will get exposed and you'll get tested, and that's probably one of the biggest tests you'll face. I mean, first of all, the locker room was always banging with music, man, and I mean, I've trained my ears to drown it out, and alhamdulillah, I'll hear the words every now and then, but I'll just ignore it, and then just rush up out of the locker room, but alhamdulillah.
Are you permitted to have noise blocking earphones inside of there?
I keep my headphones on. People think I'm listening to music. I was like, I'm listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast. I'm listening to podcast, man.
Yeah. Because I'd say we get a launch good campaign right now and get some noise blockers for him, inshallah. We'll get that going.
Yeah, I need that.
I mean.
The one thing I'll add, and I agree with all of those, I think anytime you're in a minority group, in a group of people that are not like you, there's things that you have to explain and you're going to get questions about, and I think that's normal. The one thing that I'll add, and I think all of us kind of alluded to it or have said it, it's an industry working in it or playing in it where it takes up a lot of your time, and I think for a lot of people that are in it, that's it. Brother Ahmed talked about it, it's a job at the end of the day, and I think for a lot of people in sports, it's so encompassing, it's all they want to talk about, it's all they want to do in their lives. And I think for us as Muslims, having to kind of retrain your brain, and you're looking around at these people who eat, sleep, breathe, dream football, which is fine, and I do my job because I love my job, but ultimately at the end of the day, this is my job, and we know that the dunya is just a really tiny part of everything that we're going to be going through, and I think being around people where this is it, and the only goal is that they want to win Super Bowls, or the only goal is that they want to attain a certain career milestone. We're just kind of different in a mentality way, in the way that we're looking at it. And I think having to kind of remind yourself that this is not the be-all, end-all is something that you kind of actively have to do, just because in most spaces you're the only Muslim or one of a few Muslims in that space.
MashaAllah. She literally just dropped, they not like us. They not like us.
Yeah.
I'll say as well, like they said, I would say, just fighting all the character traits that, as a Muslim, you're not supposed to be a part of, but just fighting those, especially in the collegiate space when you play in those high-level schools. Everything becomes heightened. It's one thing as a Muslim, you know what you're not supposed to do, but you're not really exposed to those things. But it's another thing to be exposed to those things, and it's normalized to partake in those things and have to intentionally go out your way to not partake in it. Sometimes, it can fracture some relationships with teammates, and not in a bad way if you handle it right, but it can, some of the stigmas and some of the stigmas that come with, they don't see you doing certain things and they ask why, and it's normalized for them, but just the heightened effect of all the things as a Muslim you're not supposed to partake in, it becomes extremely to another level, especially in the collegiate space that, it could be easier as a normal person in society, but as an athlete, it's just extremely heightened that you have to intentionally just find a way to avoid and just be on a straight path.
It's a unique industry because it skews so young. And so it's, it's very, and may Allah reward Nimra and all the organizers for putting this on tonight and tomorrow, and in the future, inshallah. But and may Allah forgive me and others who haven't done enough to support everybody to my left, because it's a really tough, really public place to be trying to start a career as a 22, 23, 24-year-old, and before that now, because college is basically being a pro. And instead of having everybody in the room kind of supporting, right, like a young doctor, young lawyer, young engineer, it's flipped. Hey man, can I get tickets? Hey, can I get your autograph? Right, and there's nothing wrong with those things. I don't know if you guys are gonna do this later, but so I'm not criticizing. But because this is a farz kifaya. It's not everybody has to do it. It's the community overall. This is something Nimra and I in particular will be talking about tomorrow morning, is how can we better support athletes? I mean, every year in Ramadan, because it moves, it's like it's the first time Ramadan is happening during a season. And I had somebody in the NFL tell me, we don't have to worry about that. I said, why not? Ramadan's in the off season. I'm like, dude, it's a lunar calendar, it moves. Okay? You better watch out, it's coming for you. And what is the plan, right? And by the way, why is it their job to come up with the plan? Like, we should tell them, hey, this is how it works, right? And in EPL, in football, in English football, they're having roll on breaks, iftar breaks during matches, but which is awesome and great and something they have to fight for a long time to even allow. But then the fans don't really know what it is, and they're booing because there's a stoppage in play that they don't understand, right? And so, again, how do we educate? Because it's a tremendous opportunity. When Mohamed Salah went to play at Liverpool, there's like actually data on it. They've done studies about how Islamophobia went way down because one Muslim guy who's an amazing, incredible, world-class player showed up and started scoring a lot of goals. So that's the power that sports has. But how do we, nurture that? How do we defend these guys, everybody who and women who are in the industry, and enable them and nurture them and create this pathway? And so that's something now that I'm older and have been in the industry for a while, thinking about how do we create that space? Because I gotta be honest, you guys see after so many different games and matches, there's the Bible circle after, right? And players from different teams, and in football, they're trying to rip each other's faces up, and suddenly they're all around, right? And there are these organizations, some we'll be talking about tomorrow too, but like there are these organizations like the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. They've been around for 60, 70 years. They've got $100 million plus budgets every year. We got 2 billion Muslims across the globe. How many of them were making sajda during the World Cup every time they scored a goal? And so we're there. And what are we doing as a community?
MashaAllah, amazing. I want to mention something. When Ferguson happened, we sent some of our students to work on a project there that was called Operation Help or Hush. Pretty much, step up or be quiet. And it was interesting because as I was filling out the registration with some of my students, it talked about meals. Vegan, vegetarian, and kosher. No halal. Now we can sit there and complain, why didn't they, respond to, create an opportunity for us like that? But actually I flipped it on our students and I said, it's actually our fault. Because we haven't shown up and articulated and expressed to us what our needs are. One, showing up, but two, when we do show up, what our needs are. MashaAllah, like our brother Ali is saying here. And I think that is something, like you said, we've reached that place right now. I think we're at an incredible inflection point right now. And I think that even, I remember, MashaAllah, someone from our community attended the rip-off Argentina-Egypt game. But MashaAllah, they had two Jum'ah Salat that were taking place, and in the stadium. And I think that's incredible of what you're saying. And so like the Surge doesn't, MashaAllah, actually tonight, with all full transparency, I'm supposed to be in Austin because Ismail Fath is actually a member of our community. So the FIFA ref that ref the England Argentina game is a UT grad, and he's, MashaAllah, tabarakallah, from our community. And unfortunately, there's a scheduling conflict, and MashaAllah chose Houston over Austin. Don't tell them that. But tabarakallah, him making sajda after that, just out of just sheer appreciation of Allah, what Allah has facilitated, I think is so incredible. But then if you saw some of the feedback, right? Because now they're saying that because Argentina won, he's making sajda. To be able to dispel these types of, that somehow we're just giving it to Allah, it can't be it. It has to be something else behind it. So alhamdulillah, just mashallah, a lot of work to do, but also mashallah, a lot of incredible achievements as well too. A question that I have here for all of you, and feel free to disclose as much as you can. But what does discipline actually look like on a daily basis? What does discipline look like on a daily basis? You talked about 6 to 6, Brother Ali. You know what I mean? Maybe there's doubles or other stuff like that. But what is discipline? And not just you. I'm not calling you, but I mean, you mentioned that, so that's why I had to go through that.
Discipline. That's a word that I feel like I go to sleep, I can hear it in my head because coaches mentioned that in meetings. Every single day. And alhamdulillah, just recently I was with another team in Tennessee. I was with the Tennessee Titans, alhamdulillah. And that's a word that a meeting does not go by, my coach does not mention the word discipline. But him being repetitive about it just tells the importance of being disciplined. And I can even hear him in my head right now. Literally every single day, every single morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I think what discipline looks like is you have to be what you are today every single day, and there is no breaks. And I'll tie consistency into that as well, because those two go together hand in hand. And for me, what that looks like on a daily basis is, not only as a takeaway to sports, for me, discipline with, when I wake up, I'm gonna brush my teeth, or I'm gonna take a picture. I'm gonna use the bathroom first, but I'm gonna brush my teeth, make wudu, pray my 2 rakat before Fajr, and then find my way to the masjid. And every single day, obviously some days are better than most others, but you have to be that every single day, and there's no off day. And the moment that you start to not be that disciplined, it may not seem like, but it can ruin other aspects of your life. Because it's a routine. If you're a routine person, you know how that is. If one thing is off, your whole day is off. And alhamdulillah, the best way to start your day, or with discipline, with Fajr, showing the Fajr, it's a lot of barakah in the morning time. For me, that's what that looks like, and to add the sports aspect into it. And I feel like for me, everything else becomes easy once I perfect my discipline with Salah in the morning. Because as an athlete, you remove the athlete aspect out of it. You talk about being a Muslim and being disciplined with your Salah, and you add in being an athlete into that. I think everything else becomes easy, because you're already dedicated to what you're doing every single day with spending time with Allah, starting in the morning, and then you add the sports aspect into that, and everything else becomes easy. But it may not be as easy, but you have to be that every single day and not falter.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of the discipline that's required in the sporting industry, us being Muslims and kind of having that built-in discipline of your 5 salah times, no matter what, of fasting in Ramadan, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the conditions are, I think automatically kind of reinforces a lot of things that are valuable in our industry. Like you said, the coaches talk about it all the time. Our bosses and our coworkers are talking about it all the time. And I think we kind of come in as Muslims with like this built-in skill set where we know how to get up early, we know how to be on time, we know how to refrain from doing something we're not supposed to do. We know how to do something that we're supposed to do. And I think in that aspect specifically, it's one thing that ties in like really nicely.
I'll just say discipline is just, putting your feelings aside and doing what you're supposed to do because it's what you're responsible to do, and just taking care of your duties, not because you feel like it, but because you know it's what you're supposed to do. And for me, that's something I try and, there's always some days you don't feel like waking up, you don't feel like doing certain things, but you have to get yourself out, you have to go work out, you have to do certain things. And if you go based on feelings, your man is always up and down, how you feel is always up and down. And I feel like if you just stick to it, I'm not militant, but just in a way of you have to do it and just do it, and then halas, everything is after that, is a plus, and whether you do it or not, but just doing it because you have to, not because you feel like it.
So I've been married 25 years now. Earlier this summer was my 25th anniversary, and but I bring that up because I want to talk about my father-in-law, which is weird, but my wife's not here. So every time we go on vacation, every morning he says the exact same thing without fail, which is there's no vacation from ibadah, right? There's no vacation from worshiping Allah. That's our job, and that's like always what he says. And even though he's in his 80s and worked into his 80s as a surgeon, that's always what he says. And I always just remember that because I have a son who's 17 and he plays football, and he's very what his coaches would call disciplined about it. They have 6 a.m. practices, and I'm always like, how is it that I never once wake you up for your 6 a.m. practice? And every day I wake you up for Fajr, and it is a battle. And I found a spot right here that will wake him up without fail. If I have to go there, I'll go there. And I always thought, I'm like, hey man, your priorities are all messed up. I know you have the discipline, because when it's some coach who's gonna yell at you if you show up late and make you do whatever they make you do, okay, but then how do you not have it for Fajr? And so anyway, and I worry because he's gonna leave the house, right, in a year, and well, where is that discipline? Because that's the kind of discipline we want to instill. But I think it's interesting because somebody once, shocker, I didn't play professional sports, but I've worked with a lot of professional athletes, and they told me once, you'd be amazed how many NFL players actually hate football, which is kind of shocking to me. Maybe not to you guys. And then how few of them are willing to have the discipline it actually takes to be that top, the whole, I only eat square of chocolate, I don't drink alcohol, even as a non-Muslim. I go to bed at 9 p.m., right? Like, there's so few people who are willing to do that, and they'd rather just rely on, what people call God-given talent. So even there, it's interesting to know that, like, that discipline isn't as prevalent as we might think. And it's kind of our superpower, inshallah, being Muslim and having that discipline, and where else can we apply it in other aspects of life? So,
mashallah, you brought the youth into it, or I should say, use I use the plural, use the singular. I think you appreciate that as a lawyer of linguistics, inshallah. So here's a question for you. What are young Muslims chasing that they should be questioning? What are young Muslims chasing, perhaps, in this area? You talked about that, right? Like what's the bridge that connects that, like you said? Exactly, right? And I have 5 children. And they are here, so I'll be careful. But my point of what you're saying here, like, yes, easy to get you up you're up for practice, right? But salah, subhanallah, like you haven't slept for 3 days, and can you hear me? Should we get maybe hearing tests? Should we light, tests or something? How perhaps what are they after that perhaps they should be questioning in this space?
I would say more so they have to ask themselves why they're chasing whatever they're chasing, because even if you say, I want to make it to the NBA or I want to make it to the NFL, well, why do you want to do that? Is it for the money? Is it for the attention? And if it is for those reasons, why do you want that? Why do you want those reasons? And if it's, let's say, for the money, then with more money comes more responsibility and then more accountability. You'll be questioned for every dollar you got and spent and how you spent it. So I would say something for myself. I have to ask myself, why was it I wanted to go to NBA, or why was I want to play professional basketball? And when you really do that deep dive and reflectiveness on yourself and just asking yourself these questions, once you get to the root of that, you really realize that a lot of times you might be doing it for the wrong reasons, and you have to find a way to pivot why you're chasing that thing for the right reasons. And obviously everything we should be doing is for the sake of Allah, but in this dunya, what is the reason in this dunya why you're chasing whatever profession or whatever sport or whatever you're choosing to do? What is the main reason? What is the core reason as to why you're chasing that thing?
I'll use an example from my journey. I think some of the reasons why I was doing what I was doing, to question myself, I probably was not doing it for the right reasons, or if I was doing it for a good reason, it wasn't a reason good enough to chase. And I reflect back in my college days, like I said earlier, I was I had goals for myself. I was trying to be, I was trying to break the sack record. Only when my former teammate actually, thankfully I was able to reunite with him and play with him. He was a holder of that record. Just for example, I was trying to, chase the sack record. But in hindsight, it distracted me from many other things that I could have done. Why did I want to break the sack record? To be mentioned, in the walls of, football ops, the facility that we had. Or, my picture up there. Okay, I left a legacy, but why? I feel like my intentions weren't right, but they weren't bad, but it wasn't for the right reasons. But I think in that sense, everything ties back with your intentions with Allah, because no matter what you do, if it's idle or if it's serious, your intentions are what matters. And I feel like for me, it wasn't necessarily a bad intention, but it wasn't, a good enough reason to have, to have been chasing what I wanted to chase as far as being successful and what success looked like. But I should have probably questioned myself better and, I did it for the right reasons. And I feel like from my perspective now, we gotta look at all these. If it doesn't please Allah, then it has no space around me. And that goes for every single thing that I do.
Yeah, I would repeat one of the points I made earlier, just about a lot of people in this industry chasing rings, chasing championships, chasing whatever those things are. And I think ultimately, it's always kind of the donate versus athlete thing. We always have to reset and remind ourselves that that's not it. That could be the career goal, that could be the job goal, but ultimately, as Muslims, we're not here on earth for that. We're here on earth to be chasing our goals, to be able to make it to Jannah. And I think in an industry where a lot of people are chasing rings, chasing championships, which is great, but that's the only thing, you kind of have to reset and tell yourself, there's something more important and there's something bigger than me that I'm supposed to be working on, even if all the people around me are not necessarily on the same page about it.
I think the easiest answer is chasing anything that people find on their phones and social media for the most part. And the contrast to all the stories of the prophets that we have in Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the Quran and in the Seerah, and just knowing what's real and what's not real. And I think that is one of the signs of the Day of Judgment, right? You don't know what's real, what's not real, what's true, what's not true. And it is, for a long time I thought I was chasing, we're gonna start a company, we're gonna sell it, and then I'm just gonna donate money and then that'll be done. Right, like a check, you just check the box. And how did that happen a few years ago in a context at a sports company that we had spun out, and I had an opportunity to do what I'm doing now, and I thought, no, I don't want to be the guy that, right, it's a hadith that we have a mountain of gold, and as a mountain of gold, he chases the second. I don't want to be that guy. And so I was like, no, I'm good. And then one of my teachers said, well, Allah's going to ask you on the Day of Judgment about all the opportunities He gave you, and if you didn't make use of some of the opportunities, you're going to be answerable for that. Not in a threatening way, but it stopped me cold, and I said, well, so even some of the things, it's contradictory what I said earlier, right? Chasing some of these success metrics, money, fame. What do you do with that fame? Right? It's not only what are you doing it for, but then what do you do with it if you actually attain it? And is it to buy a new house, or is it to donate to your masjid, or even build masjid? Is it to buy the car, and there's nothing wrong with a house and a car, obviously, but just so that was something that subhanAllah, I hadn't fully even thought about because I hadn't had to. And I think so that's something for all of us, inshallah, to keep in mind is setting your intentions, and we're not judging necessarily on outcomes, but just on the intentions. But then if you do have some of that success, well then what do you do with it? What was it for? And could it actually, almost retroactively either destroy or make it beneficial? Yeah.
And speaking of that beneficial, so alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me. Imam Zayd is one of my mentors, one of my teachers, and a long-standing, really friend, if you will, brother. And he, as you may know, he was intimately involved with the planning of the passing of Muhammad Ali. And I think we're here, a lot of us are here because of his legacy. May Allah have mercy upon his grave. But one of the things that he did, talking about being able to use what you said, was he would actually sign his autograph pamphlets inviting people to Islam. So he would, so you get that autograph, you're not going to throw it away now. Right? So that's his brilliance of how it is used in that. But I'm going to Sister Nimr, do you want to transition, inshallah? There's a little bit of Q&A before the prayer, inshallah.
Yes, we have some time for Q&A from the audience. So if you have one, please raise your hand. Okay. So Sister Shireen first.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question about, and jumping off something Brother Ahmed said, about the push, particularly for you both, for the push to social media to post. How pressure do you feel? Because it's not enough to be a professional athlete training. Now you gotta post yourself training. Now you gotta post, is this pose look good? Is this angle good? I don't know if guys are like that, but is that something you have to consider? I know of athletes that hire social media people to do that for them, and how does that play in, particularly with Islamic principles?
I would say for myself, kind of playing overseas where I play now, you're kind of more behind the scenes where it doesn't matter as much, but I know definitely when I was in college and in high school it was a big thing, you play good or you want to post to see but see what happens, and you want to keep people updated on what's going on in your life. But, looking back, I got to a point where it just makes me realize that it goes back to what we're saying. It's 100% a lot of times for the wrong reasons. It's to see how many likes you get, how much attention you get. And at the end of the day, not all attention is good attention. You never know if people even are, wishing bad on you, even want to see you successful. And honestly, now I'm at a point where I have social media more so to communicate with people that I might not be able to communicate with on a regular basis. But it's a really tough thing with social media. You have to really make your intention pure as to why you're doing it. If you're posting for attention and you care about how many likes you have, I gotta post at this time because this is when more people are gonna see it. Or if it's a genuine, I just like to keep up with family. I like to see family. I like to see what my friends are doing. And it's definitely a tough balance. And I know when I was younger, it definitely wasn't for the right reasons. But now it's something that alhamdulillah, I haven't really had to deal with as much because I'm more behind the scenes. But even then, sometimes being tagged and stuff like music, staying away from the music aspects. Sometimes someone might tag you with something, you want to repost it, but they put music so that you can't repost it, and they might ask why, and then you got to explain it to them. So social media it's a gift and a curse in some ways. It can bring people together, but it also can be a burden and bring a lot of harm as well.
Well said, man. I think everything he just hit it on the head right there. I think for me, I just use social media to just scroll because I like farming, so anything I can learn on social media, on Instagram, I'll just go on the feed and learn about farming or whatever. Or on YouTube, my wife knows. She knows what I've been doing. But Instagram, to be honest, or any social media, that matter is, I think a lot of it is a waste of time. I think in college, it was more so, okay, let me put myself out there, just to seem like a normal person, get followers, because one day, they talk about building a brand, you have to post, so you get caught up in that sense of, okay, I need to post just myself out there, just so I can advertise myself. Why? People come see me, they come see me on Saturdays in college, come watch me play on Sundays. They need to engage. If they need to engage, then we'll find other ways to engage. But to be honest, I think social media you can get lost in, like they say, lost in the sauce. But to be honest, right now, I don't remember the last time I posted because, like I said, I'm on Instagram scrolling on, looking at farming videos or whatever. That's my interest. Go ahead. But that's what it is. Instagram is a dangerous place, man. You got some different people messaging. It's great.
Questions?
Yeah.
I think most. I'm gonna walk over all the way.
Just a quick question about kind of like being an athlete in the current world that we have right now, and just kind of like the trying to kind of like walk through the waters of what to say, what not to say, in particularly kind of like what we see in regards to like the things that happen to our brothers and sisters overseas. What do you guys kind of like feel with having to kind of navigate that, especially if you guys, a world where it's like you kind of watch what you say because you're a part of the NFL brand or the NBA brand or whatever it is, like how do you kind of like navigate that as athletes and kind of be able to use your voice to also help out, our community?
That's a good question. To be honest, I have the mindset of like I said earlier, like if they gonna cut me for saying or doing something that I'm standing for, believing, I've made peace with that a long time ago, and I don't, and to be honest, I'm very inspired by all those people that got fired from Microsoft, when they were standing for the lesson. And to be honest, I learned a lot from those people. And even before that, I had that mindset, but just seeing people actually doing it, and it was inspiring. And if they can do it and not have a job the next day, why would I care about not playing football on the next Sunday? To be honest, and I made peace with that, and I told myself, like, I posted, and I saw the difference in the followers. I'm like, okay, you know what? That's actually a good thing because these are the people that need to get away from being a part of my social media community. And it just, weeding out the negative people out. But to be honest, I saw those people out there just standing, in conferences, in Microsoft conferences. I'm like, if they have the courage to do that, what's to stop us from speaking up? Who cares about being? If you get cut, Allah is the best of providers. Why would you worry about anything else if Allah is providing for you to be there? So why would you be scared to stand up? And alhamdulillah, one of my teammates, Aziz, he did a really, really good job of that. And I only wish that I was able to support him with that, because I know he was doing it by himself. And alhamdulillah, we were reunited. I'm reunited with him, and I'm able to stand up with him and support him as my captain, and as a team leader, because he did a job that, he has a platform that's a lot of people are looking at him, looking to him for something, for leadership, to say something or to be a voice. And alhamdulillah, he did a good job, and I'm grateful that I'm reunited with him, like I said, to offer support any way I can, follow his lead. He's been a great brother of mine, a great friend, great teammate, and great everything. So I think for us, we shouldn't care about losing what we have at the cost of not standing up for the people that deserve to be, supported, that need our help. And I think, whatever happens, Allah will take care of us regardless.
If I may, you mentioned, I think for me, the most profound kind of a sequence in that was a sister who I think was the most vocal.
Yeah.
And she was offered a job immediately, right? I think Qatar picked her up and gave her something, but then she moved into something within the States of an organization. So again, this is the idea that you're not going to give something up for the sake of Allah, but He's going to replace it with something which is even better. So that's that overcoming that fear that Shaitan, puts forth to us.
Well, you brought up Muhammad Ali already, but in the moment, he was vilified.
That's right.
Right? For 5-10 years in the moment. And it was only later in his life did people hail him, Muslims and non, as a hero and ask for his autograph.
That's right.
During the prime of his career, people would not have asked for his autograph. And so remembering that, there's a book relatively recently called One Day Everybody Will Have Been Against This, right? It was a bomb about to land on a little girl. And it feels like we're kind of getting closer to that. You can always tell when the politicians start saying certain things, and you're like, wait, why is that so different than a few years ago? And what's the #1 video on any social media other than YouTube? I think they're watching it, but it's a certain mayor of New York's video this week about a certain topic, and that is the by far most watched thing on social media, and it kind of makes you just think, wow, that's pretty crazy. And are we getting to that?
But especially if you've been watching this for long enough, and you remember what 2014 looked like and the Ground Zero Masjid and all of these things that have brought us to where we are right now, it's trending in the right direction. See that face.
I think we have time for one more question. Sorry.
So I'm going to make a very quick question to each one of you. What was your boss's first impression of you being Muslim? Because I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about Muslims being in their workforce. I was just out of
That's good. I had one instance, 2024, before I got released by the Texans. And this was on the journey of, just being more vocal about being Muslim to my coaches. This is training camp 2024. Wow, 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. I told my position coach, I told him, it's Friday, I need to go to the masjid and play Jumu'ah. He was pretty understanding. I wasn't sure if my head coach knew, so he told me to go talk to the head coach. And I had knowledge that, obviously Aziz played with him. He was with Aziz in San Fran. But it wasn't nothing negative. It was just, I feel like there was like it's like pulling teeth kind of in a way, but not that dramatic. But I went to his office and I sat down and told him, I want to miss a little bit of meeting time because obviously I'm close to Mishkat. It's 3-minute drive from the facility, so I was like, it's only right that I go bridge money and come back. So I mean, he's pretty understanding, but I feel like obviously you're in the meeting room with the head coach, the head man. That's the least of his worries, worrying about one of his players going to the masjid. Obviously he doesn't, but I always use the reference. It's like going to church on Sunday. This is that for us Friday. So I always use that, but I think from that on he understood obviously the seriousness and why I take the time to tell him that I need to miss meeting because this is pretty important. Just like football is important, not as important as praying, Jumu'ah on Friday, but I had to make it as serious because football and the football world, everybody in the football world, football is everything. They talk about the ball. The ball is everything. That's all they care about. They sleep, eat, everything is about the ball. But I had to make it as serious as the ball because it is more serious than the ball.
Obviously, they knew I was Muslim the second I walked in. So. But I will say the one thing that I'll add is that I think Ramadan is usually the time of year that it comes up the most, that they want to ask questions and it's something that's different and cool. And I'm only speaking from my experience, but people are curious and I think it's cool just from a learning perspective that they're hearing about what this is. And the last couple of years, I've had coworkers that have just fasted over Ramadan for fun, just to kind of try it out and do something new. And like we said, football people love discipline, so it's kind of cool for them anyways. But yeah, I think just being a woman and being a hijabi, it's a little bit of a different situation because you kind of wear it everywhere you are and it's not something you really have to tell people, but it's something that I try to be conscious of in terms of, the way that I talk about certain things, whether it's Salah or Ramadan or things that are kind of unique and different that I'm the only one in the office kind of experiencing.
I will say I never really had, I've only had good experiences. I've played for coaches who are overly Christian in terms of expressing their faith. So usually when you meet someone that is, whether it's Jewish or Christian, they're usually very accepting of that. And in general, I've never had any bad experiences. It's only been accommodating, if I gotta go pray on Friday or, I might have to pray at a certain time. So I never, and then also I came to Egypt, so it's already, we don't practice during Jumu'ah times, Friday, we always make sure if we have to stop practice, we'll pray Salah together. So alhamdulillah, that's a blessing for sure. And that's one of the reasons why, living in a place and playing in a place like that, it's amazing.
I had a funny experience because the one judge who actually offered me a job 20-some years ago, she's the wife of a pastor, so she's a lifetime appointed federal judge and her husband's a pastor. And she hadn't had much experience with Muslims at all. And it wasn't really a thing. And so I worked with her for over a year. And so the Ramadan, it was like not even water, right? That whole deal.
Yeah.
And then Friday I had to leave and I'll come back. We have hearings, can the other clerk cover for me while I go to Jummah. And it became a thing that by the end, we'd have lunch and she's like, there's pork in there. Hey, that was cooked in wine. And, I don't believe the whole cooking out thing. She's telling me this, right? And then in the years since, she's hired she hired my brother basically sight unseen. And I was like, I had to apply to 200 judges. She hired my sister-in-law. She hired all these hijabis and this one woman, she was like, yeah, she said she knew you. And I was like, I might have met her once. And so it was just an interesting, she went from and it was literally like, yeah, those Muslims, they work hard. They're good people. They right? And I was like, not all of us necessarily, but it's like that is the reputation we want to have, even with somebody who hadn't had the experience with Muslims. And I think the sports industry, because people are really getting it now. Oh, it's an industry, right? And being able to do that more, and these three are really like front facing in the facility. They're the people that people think of, and being able to empower them, I think is really, really important for our community.
MashaAllah, may Allah continue to bless all of you. First, I want to say to the community here, please forgive me. We've gone over time. We said that we're going to pray at 10 o'clock. Inshallah, we can call the adhan, inshallah, and continue with that. But I really just want to thank all of our panelists here. MashaAllah, Zadakumullah fadl, may Allah continue to bless you, MashaAllah, and bounty and being examples, qudwa, inshallah, being an example for this. So it's been a great night. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow and being with everyone. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Ameen, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And so we'll close out with a very short supplication, which is Subhanak Allahumma wa hamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Na'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.